I never told anyone what really happened that night. Not my family, not even the police, but I need to get this out because I still can't sleep without checking every corner of my room first. It was August of 2019 and I was driving from Phoenix to Seattle for a job interview. I'd mapped out the whole trip, planned my stops, booked decent hotels along the way. But somewhere in eastern Oregon I made a stupid mistake. I'd been pushing myself too hard, trying to make good time, and by the time the sun started setting, I was nowhere near my reservation. My eyes were burning, my back ached, and I knew I couldn't make it another 3 hours safely. That's when I saw the sign, weathered blue paint, half the letters missing. Motel vacancy. An arrow pointing down a dirt road that disappeared into a cluster of pine trees. I should have kept driving. Should have pulled over and slept in my car if I was that tired. But the thought of a bed, a shower, maybe some vending machine coffee, it was too tempting. I took the turn. The road was worse than it looked, pitted with holes that made my suspension creak. It went on for almost 2 miles before the trees opened up into a clearing. And there it was, a horseshoe-shaped building, single-story, maybe 12 rooms total. The paint was the same faded blue as the sign, and most of the windows had curtains drawn. Only 2 cars in the lot, both covered in dust like they'd been there for weeks. The office was attached to the far end. Through the window I could see a small lamp on the desk, but no one inside. I parked near the door and got out. The air smelled wrong. Not bad exactly, just stale, like nothing had moved through this place in a very long time. A bell chimed when I pushed open the door. The office was tiny, cramped with old furniture and stacks of yellowed newspapers. Behind the desk sat a man, maybe 60, with gray hair slicked back and reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up at me and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Need a room?" His voice was dry, scratchy. "Just for the night," I said. "Heading north tomorrow." He nodded slowly like I'd said something profound and slid a registration card across the desk. The pen he gave me was nearly out of ink. I had to press hard to make my name visible. $40 cash only. I didn't have much cash on me, but I scraped together 2 20s from my wallet. He took them without counting and handed me a key attached to a heavy plastic tag. Room 4. "Checkout's at 10, he said, then went back to whatever he'd been reading, dismissing me completely. Room 4 was near the middle of the horseshoe. The door stuck when I turned the key and I had to shoulder it open. Inside, the bed had a floral comforter that looked clean enough, and the bathroom light flickered when I flipped the switch. It wasn't great, but I'd stayed in worse. I locked the door, fastened the chain, and tossed my bag on the chair. The shower was lukewarm at best, but it felt good to wash the road off my skin. I changed into sweats and a t-shirt, set an alarm on my phone, and climbed into bed. That's when I heard the phone ring. Not my cell phone, the landline on the nightstand. An old rotary-style phone I hadn't even noticed until that shrill, jangling ring cut through the silence. I stared at it for 3 rings before picking up. "Hello?" Silence, but not empty silence. I could hear something on the other end. Breathing, maybe. "Hello?" I said again, louder this time. The line went dead. I hung up, my heart beating faster than it should have been. Wrong number, I told myself, or the front desk checking if I needed anything. Except the manager didn't seem like the type to check on guests. I tried to settle back into bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I kept glancing at the phone, half expecting it to ring again. It didn't. But 20 minutes later, I heard the doorknob rattle. Just once. A quick testing turn, like someone checking if it was locked. I sat up, pulse hammering in my ears. The chain was fastened. The deadbolt was turned. I was safe, but my hands were shaking as I stared at that door, waiting for another sound. Nothing came. I got up and looked through the peephole. The parking lot was empty and dark. No movement, no people. Just my car sitting under the one flickering streetlight. I told myself it was the wind, an animal, anything but what it felt like. I went back to bed, but I didn't close my eyes. I watched the door, watched the phone, listened to every creak and settling sound in that old building. An hour passed, maybe 2. Then I heard it. A key sliding into the lock. My stomach dropped. I heard the deadbolt turn, smooth and deliberate. The door pushed open an inch before the chain caught it with a metallic snap. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Through the gap, I saw someone was standing right there, just on the other side of the chain. They didn't say anything, didn't try to force the door. They just stood there, breathing, waiting. I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. The door eased shut. I heard footsteps retreating down the walkway. Slow, unhurried. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. But when the operator answered, I froze. What was I going to say? Someone unlocked my motel room door but left when the chain stopped them. That I felt scared. 911, what's your emergency? I'm sorry, wrong number. I hung up. I felt stupid, paranoid. Maybe it was the manager doing a late-night check. Maybe I hadn't locked the door properly and it swung open on its own. But I knew what I heard. I knew someone had used a key. I shoved the chair under the doorknob, piled my suitcase against it, and sat on the bed with the lights on, waiting for dawn. The phone rang again at 4:17 a.m. I didn't answer. I just stared at it, watching it jangle and scream in the silence. It rang 15 times before stopping. When the sun finally came up, pale and gray through the thin curtains, I grabbed my things and left. I didn't check out. I didn't ask for a refund. I just got in my car and drove. I was 5 miles down the highway when I realized I still had the room key in my pocket. And sometimes late at night I can hear that phone ringing. It was late October, maybe around 10 at night, and I was driving from Denver back to my parents' place in Kansas. I'd been on the road for about 6 hours, and honestly, I was exhausted. My eyes were getting heavy, and I'd already had 3 cups of gas station coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. I knew I needed to stop, but I wanted to push through. Just get home, sleep in my own bed. That's when I saw the sign. Exit 47. Next service is 83 miles, 83 miles. I did the math in my head. Another hour and a half, maybe more. I rubbed my eyes, felt the car drift slightly to the right, and that scared me enough to make the decision. I took the exit. The ramp curved down into absolute darkness. No streetlights, no buildings. Just my headlights cutting through the night and empty fields on either side. I started second-guessing myself immediately, but I kept going. About 2 miles down this narrow 2-lane road, I finally saw it. A motel. The sign said Evergreen Inn, but there wasn't a single tree anywhere near the place. Just flat land and this long single-story building with maybe 12 rooms. The neon sign flickered, half the letters burnt out. There were only 2 cars in the parking lot. An old pickup truck with a rusted bed and a sedan that looked like it hadn't moved in weeks, covered in dust. But I was tired, so tired, and the thought of driving another hour made my whole body ache. I parked in front of the office and went inside. The door stuck and I had to shove it open with my shoulder. A bell jingled somewhere above me. Behind the desk was a woman, probably in her 40s, with thin gray hair and eyes that didn't really look at me. She was watching a small TV in the corner, some old western with the volume way too loud. "Need a room?" I said. She didn't respond right away, just reached under the desk without looking and slid a clipboard toward me. The pen attached to it was chewed at the end. $42, she said. Her voice was flat, like she'd said those words 1,000 times and stopped caring somewhere around the 100th. I filled out the form, paid in cash, and she handed me a key. An actual metal key, not a card. Room 7. I thanked her, but she didn't acknowledge it. Room 7 was at the far end of the building. I grabbed my bag from the car and walked down the concrete pathway. The lights above each door were dim and a couple were out completely. When I got to my room, I noticed the door to room 6 was slightly open. Not wide open, just cracked about an inch. The room was dark inside. I unlocked my door and stepped in. The room was exactly what you'd expect. One bed with a floral comforter that had definitely seen better days. A TV bolted to the dresser. A bathroom with a stained sink. The air smelled stale, like it had been closed up for weeks. I locked the door behind me, checked the deadbolt twice, and tossed my bag on the chair. I thought about taking a shower, but honestly, I just wanted to sleep. I texted my mom, told her I'd stopped for the night and would be home in the morning. Then I plugged in my phone, turned off the light, and got into bed. The sheets were rough and smelled faintly of bleach. I closed my eyes. That's when I heard it, a low humming sound. Not mechanical, not the heater or the fridge. It sounded human. Like someone humming a tune, but with no melody, just the same note over and over again. It was coming from the wall behind my head. Room 6. I sat up, listening. The humming continued for maybe 30 seconds, then stopped. Silence. I waited, my heart beating a little faster now. Maybe someone was just settling in for the night. Maybe they were on the phone and didn't realize they were making noise. I lay back down. Then I heard the scraping. It was soft at first, like fingernails dragging slowly across the wall. Long, deliberate strokes, down, then up, right behind my headboard. I got out of bed and stood in the middle of the room staring at the wall. My phone screen lit up. 11:47 p.m. I grabbed it and turned on the flashlight, shining it at the wall like that would somehow help. The scraping stopped. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, nothing. I tried to convince myself it was pipes, old building, bad plumbing, maybe an animal in the walls. I'd heard stories about rats in cheap motels. I got back into bed, but I didn't close my eyes this time. That's when the knocking started. 3 soft knocks on the wall. Then nothing. Then 3 more. My whole body went rigid. That wasn't pipes. That wasn't an animal. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knocking came again, but this time it was faster, harder. Then it moved. It traveled along the wall from behind my bed toward the door. like someone was walking along the other side, dragging their knuckles against the drywall as they went. I grabbed my phone and stood up. My hands were shaking. I thought about calling the front desk, but what would I even say? Someone's knocking on the wall? That sounded insane. The knocking stopped right at the corner where the wall met the door. And then I heard the doorknob rattle. Not my doorknob. The one to room 6. I moved toward the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to see outside. The door to room 6 was still cracked open just like before. But now I could see movement inside, a shadow shifting in the darkness. I stepped back from the window, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then my doorknob started to rattle. Slow at first, just a slight turn like someone was testing it. Then harder. The whole handle shaking, I ran to the door and pressed my weight against it, even though I knew it was locked. The rattling stopped. Silence. I stood there, my ear against the door, listening. I could hear breathing, right on the other side. Slow, wet breathing, like someone with a congested chest. Then a voice, low and raspy. "Let me in." I backed away from the door, my hands over my mouth to keep from making a sound. "Let me in?" It said it again, the same flat tone. No emotion, no anger, just a request. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I heard footsteps then moving away from my door. Slow, dragging steps on the concrete outside. I ran back to the window and looked out. There was a man standing in the parking lot, barefoot. His back was to me and he was just standing there, completely still, facing the empty road. I watched him for what felt like forever. He didn't move, didn't turn around. Then slowly his head started to tilt back, farther and farther until he was staring straight up at the sky. His arms hung limp at his sides, and he started humming. That same low, tuneless hum I'd heard through the wall. I closed the curtain, grabbed my bag, and didn't think twice. I unlocked the door, stepped outside, and ran to my car. I didn't look back. I didn't check to see if he turned around. I just drove. I didn't stop until I hit the Kansas state line 2 hours later. I pulled into a well-lit truck stop, went inside, and sat in a booth until the sun came up. I never reported it. I don't even know what I would have said, but sometimes late at night when I'm lying in bed, I still hear it, that humming. And I wonder if he's still standing there, waiting. I don't stay in motels anymore. I don't care how tired I am, how late it is, or how far the next town might be. I'll sleep in my car on the side of the highway before I ever check into another roadside motel. And after I tell you what happened to me 3 years ago, you'll understand why. It was late October and I was driving back home to Ohio from a work conference in Tennessee. The plan was simple. Drive straight through, maybe stop for gas and coffee, be home by morning. But around 11 at night, somewhere in rural Kentucky, the exhaustion hit me like a wall. My eyes were burning, my head was pounding, and I kept drifting toward the shoulder. I knew I had to stop. That's when I saw the sign. Hillside Motel. Vacancy. Next exit. The place looked exactly like you'd expect. Single-story, L-shaped building with maybe 20 rooms. Flickering neon sign. Gravel parking lot with only 3 other cars scattered around. The office had a dim yellow light coming through the window, and I could see someone moving around inside. The guy at the desk was older, maybe 65, with deep-set eyes and this way of looking at you without really looking at you, if that makes sense. I asked for a room just for a few hours. He slid a key across the counter, an actual metal key with a plastic tag. Room 14. Checkout's at 10, he said. His voice was flat, monotone. Ice machine's broken. Vending machine only takes quarters. I thanked him and walked back out into the cold October air. Room 14 was at the far end of the building, last room on the left. The door was painted this faded turquoise color, peeling and cracked. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The room was exactly what you'd expect. 2 double beds with floral bedspreads, a wooden dresser with a tube TV on top, a landscape painting bolted to the wall. Dark brown carpet that had probably been installed in 1987. I locked the door behind me, fastened the chain, and tossed my bag on the bed closest to the door. I wasn't planning to sleep long. Just a few hours to recharge, then back on the road. I kicked off my shoes and lay down on top of the covers. The mattress was lumpy and the pillows smelled like detergent. I set an alarm on my phone for 4 in the morning and closed my eyes. That's when I heard it. A phone ringing. Not my phone. The room phone. That old landline sitting on the nightstand between the 2 beds. I opened my eyes and stared at it. The ringing was loud, shrill, cutting through the silence. I thought maybe it was the front desk, some question about my checkout time or payment. I picked it up. Hello? Silence. Not dead air, but silence. I could tell someone was on the other end because I could hear something. Breathing? No, not quite breathing, something softer, like air moving slowly through a space. Hello? I said again. Then a voice, male, calm, almost friendly. Room 14. That's all he said, just those 2 words. Room 14. My stomach dropped. Who is this? He didn't answer. Just that same soft sound, that almost breathing. I hung up. My heart was pounding now. I sat up on the bed staring at the phone. Wrong number, I told myself, some drunk guy misdialing. Happens all the time. But then why did he say room 14? My room number? I stood up and walked to the window, pulling back the thick curtain just enough to look outside. The parking lot was quiet. The same 3 cars, no one walking around. The office light was still on, but I couldn't see the old man anymore. I let the curtain fall back and sat down on the edge of the bed. I decided I'd just stay awake. Forget sleeping. I'd rest my eyes for a few minutes, then hit the road. The phone rang again. I jumped, my whole body going rigid. I stared at it, watching it ring once, twice, 3 times. I didn't want to answer it. Everything in me was screaming not to answer it. But I did. What do you want? That same voice. Calm. Almost pleasant. You should check the closet. My blood went cold. What? The closet, you should check it. I hung up and immediately stood, backing away from the phone. My eyes went to the closet door. It was one of those sliding doors, the kind with the mirror on one side. It was closed. I hadn't opened it when I came in, hadn't even thought about it. I stared at it for what felt like a full minute, my mind racing. This was insane, some sick prank, someone at the front desk messing with guests. That had to be it. But I couldn't stop staring at that closet door. Finally, I walked over to it. My hands were shaking as I reached for the handle and slid it open. Clothes hangers. Empty. A spare pillow on the shelf above. Nothing else. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. See? Nothing. Just some creep trying to scare me. I slid the door closed and turned around. That's when I saw it. On the nightstand next to the phone there was something, a folded piece of paper. I'd been staring at that nightstand, at that phone for the past 10 minutes. That paper was not there. My hands were trembling as I picked it up and unfolded it. Inside, written in blue ink, shaky handwriting. He comes in through the bathroom window, lock it. I dropped the paper. The bathroom. I turned slowly toward the bathroom door. It was open, just a crack. I could see the edge of the sink, the white tile. I hadn't checked the bathroom when I came in, hadn't even turned on the light. I forced myself to walk toward it. Each step felt like moving through concrete. I pushed the door open wide and hit the light switch. Empty. Toilet, sink, shower with a brown-stained curtain pulled closed. I pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Then I saw the window. Above the toilet, small rectangular frosted glass. And it was unlocked. Not just unlocked. Open. Maybe an inch. Someone could fit through there. If they were thin enough, determined enough, someone could absolutely fit through there. I slammed it shut and locked it, my breath coming fast and shallow now. I backed out of the bathroom and grabbed my bag. I wasn't staying. I didn't care how tired I was. That's when I heard the sound. A key. Sliding into the lock of the front door. I froze. The deadbolt I'd locked. The chain I'd fastened. I watched in absolute horror as the doorknob began to turn. Slowly. Testing. Then a knock. Soft, almost polite. "Maintenance," a voice called from outside, not the old man's voice. Younger. "Need to check the heater." I didn't answer. I didn't move. Another knock. Harder this time. "You awake in there?" I stood there in the middle of that room, my bag clutched in my hands, staring at that door. The chain was still fastened. He couldn't get in. Not unless he broke it down. The knocking stopped. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Silence. Finally, I crept to the window and looked out through the curtain. I could see someone walking away from my door. A man in a dark jacket, hands in his pockets. He walked slowly across the parking lot, not toward the office, but toward the woods behind the motel. Then he disappeared into the trees. I grabbed my things, unfastened the chain, and ran. I didn't check out. I didn't stop at the office. I got in my car and drove. I drove for 3 straight hours before I felt safe enough to pull over. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know who called me, who left that note, who tried to get into my room. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about that piece of paper. He comes in through the bathroom window. Who left me that warning? And what would have happened if I hadn't listened? These are 3 motel horror stories. If these stories scares you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which story terrified you the most. Was it the first, second, or third? And have you ever had a creepy experience? Share your story below. I read every single comment. Don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Terrifying and hit that bell icon so you never miss our next nightmare. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and remember, sometimes the scariest places are